yeehaw, yeehaw, yeehaw.
No, no, hang on.
Oops, out of the desk. One, two, chat, chat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Talkie, talkie, talkie. Okay, that's fine. Maybe I can give you more level, yeah. Just a second. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that any better? Talkie, talkie, talkie. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can still give you more if you need. Talk, 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 chat, chatty, chatty, chatty. 1, 2. Happy? Cool. Okay, cool. We must just check the camera feed on the other side in the other room as well. Hum, one. Loud. One, 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 one. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Happy. We must just check the camera on the other side as well, I think. This one's cool.
two. There we go. Have you got it? Okay. Don't let it be hitting the red. Hey? Take it about 20 deeps down, or 18. Okay.
Talk, talk, 1, 2, talk, talk, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Talkie, talkie, talkie. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Talkie, 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 talkie. Talk, 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 talk. 1, 1, 1. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Talkie, talkie, talkie. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7. Talkie, 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 talkie. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Talkie, talk, talkie, talk. Yeehaw, yeehaw, yeehaw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, talkie, talkie, talkie. Yeehaw, yeehaw, yeehaw. Ying tong idle I po. 1, 2, talk, talk, talk. 1, 1, 1, 1. 1, 1, 1, 1. Talkie, talkie, talkie. Yeehaw. Ying tong, ying tong, ying tong. 1, 1, 1. Yeehaw, 1, 2. Talkie, talkie, talkie. Yeehaw, 1, 2, talkie, talkie, talkie. Yeehaw, 1, 2, talkie, talkie, talkie. Yeehaw, 1, 1, 1. 1, 1, talkie, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. A good one. Make it tight, eh? It's already.
Two, two, one, two, two, one, two.
the government just comes here to talk on the SACOM side for our partners, and then you as calling times, and then I just introduce you. I'm trying to cut my speech because
Talk, 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 talk. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Talk, talk, talk. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Happy? Cool.
just come to press record.
Yeah.
can kick off. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the 2017 Highway Africa conference and SACOM 2017. We hope you had good travel yesterday and also a good night here in Grahamstown. We're most grateful to you for coming all the way to Grahamstown. Normally when you invite people to the conference here, of course they do ask you where Grahamstown is. And then the most interesting thing I found is actually the jobmakers who complain the most about how far Grahamstown is. And you try to give them perspective. One of the delegates that's here has come from Sierra Leone. Now to get here, that delegate had to first of all apply for his visa. His visa cannot be obtained from Freetown, which is the capital of Sierra Leone. He had to apply for his visa from Ghana in Accra. So he had to fly to Ghana to apply for his visa in person and spend 2 days in Accra, waiting for the visa without any certainty as to whether that visa will come out. And then fly from Accra, to Johannesburg, Port Elizabeth, and of course, do that trip. So we're really grateful to people like that. That's the nature of the Highway Africans that we've come to know over the years, over the past 20 years. So we're grateful to you for making time to come here. Professor Anthea Gammon, who is the convener of SACOM 2017, will speak a little about SACOM itself and what has gone into the planning. Mine is really as a conference director to go over the logistics, how we have planned this conference. So first of all, we all should have done our registration. In our registration, we would have our tags. Those tags are important in terms of access. We do have security, and the role of the security is to ensure that only those that are registered should go into the venues. This is just for the purpose of your own safety and security of your own goods. So we need to ensure that people that are registered for the conference are the ones that access the event. In your conference bags that you got, you would have seen there's a bottle. We are trying to do away with plastic, so it's part of our trying to go green in a small way. So just keep your bottle if you still have it. There are water points just in the foyer, so you can just fill up this bottle, keep it, take it with you home, and tell the children that plastic is not good. Okay. So my kind of overview will cover a number of things, to do with the venues and times and all that. Okay. So in terms of a program overview, the way we had structured our joint conferences is that we would start off with some pre-conference events. So we had 3 capacity building workshops. We had the Barclays Africa Data Journalism workshop. This has been going on for the past 6 years. For the first time, we had a science journalism workshop with 22 journalists coming from 11 African countries, supported by the Gates Foundation. Then we had a workshop on media accountability and local governance. We just called it local government journalism, supported by the Open Society Initiative for Southern Africa. Grateful to them for that support. Then the emerging scholars of SACOM had their briefing workshop. Some 45 to 50 of them gathered to really strategize around how they would make the most of this workshop, and also obviously to talk about pertinent issues related to curricula and other things. So now today is obviously our first day of conference. We go in, we've got a whole tight program which has got plenary and parallel sessions, we've got panels, we've got workshops in the afternoon. I'll talk a little about our venues. There's a map in your program that you should have. All of you should have a printed copy of the program. And of course, we have a social networking program as well. A few of our people are not yet here, casualties of that social networking. They did not maybe fully understand the limits of it. So we had our welcome reception yesterday. Then today, this evening, we have got the Telkom Highway Africa Awards. These will take place at the Settlers Monument. Transport will pick us up from Eden Grove here, okay, just outside at 6 o'clock. Then 6:30, we're all up there. 7 o'clock, we close the doors, we all go into the auditorium, and our proceedings start. It is a formal occasion. It is the highlight of our social networking, this conference. So please do come along. Then tomorrow evening, we have our closing reception. It's a no-frills event, which will take place at the Steve Biko building. You'll find it in your map. Lunches today and tomorrow will be served at the Nelson Mandela Dining Hall. It is the same venue where we had our welcome reception yesterday. So our shuttles will be waiting outside at 1 o'clock to take us to Nelson Mandela. But you can also walk. It's just to be about a 7-minute walk across campus. Our students who are outside in the foyer can direct you. They're also all over campus, and they can point you in the right direction. There's also signage that we have put to show you where the Nelson Mandela Dining Hall is. Now, in terms of our program, you will be able to access it online on those two websites, the SACOM website, sacom.org.za, and the Highway Africa website. You also find that in the printed program, we do not have the abstracts for the presenters in the SACOM events. You'll be able to access those on both websites. Go to the SACOM, sacom.org.za, for access to the abstracts and read them as you attend the relevant sessions. Now, in terms of internet access, you will find a signage on the wall that tells you, the network and the password. So you can then access that. If you are a presenter, you will need to get logins if you're going to do a PowerPoint presentation or any other form of presentation using the computers in the venues. You need to get logins. Those logins, you get them from the registration desk. You just need to present an ID or a passport copy in order to get those logins. That will allow then you to use a computer that's in the venue. There will also be tech assistants in those venues in case you have any difficulty. They can assist you in terms of setting up. Now, we do have a number of hashtags. If you could make us trend, of course, put your phones in a silent mode. But those are the hashtags that we are using. HA 2017, SACOM 2017, and also you can use this other rather longish one, Accountability Media. These sessions will be streamed live. But the sessions in here, which is Eden Grove Red and Eden Grove Blue, we have our team that is streaming these sessions right now. So there will be clear signage as to the URL for the streaming. Now, this is the geography of the conference. Eden Grove, that's where we are. That will be 1. Okay. We are in Grove, and then yesterday, Economics A, that's where the emerging scholars were. St. Mary's Hall is the residence where some of our delegates are staying. Number 4 there, the Settlers Monument will be the venue for our, this evening, the Telkom Highway Africa and Gala Dinner. So it will be up the hill there. So we'll just be coming from here, where we are, and that's where the transport will be. And then we just drive up, just some 5 minutes up the hill to here. Then the Africa Media Metrics, that's the home of the School of Journalism. There will be a few workshops that will be taking place there this afternoon after lunch. The Steve Biko building, the Nelson Mandela is the one that we spoke about. This is just opposite the Africa Media Metrics, the School of Journalism. Steve Biko building, that's where we have our closing reception. St. Peter's building, that's important now because after tea today, some of the sessions for SACOM will be taking place at St. Peter's. St. Peter's is just to my right here. You just pass the media desk, the media and information desk. Out of this building, to your left, again, there's clear signage, and then just some 10 meters down, there is St. Peter's. Our students will be there to usher you, to help you to get to St. Peter's. There are 2 venues there that we are using for SACOM, so you'll not miss it. Then number 9, well, we don't encourage it. There's really nothing much in Grahamstown. If you want to see a donkey or so crossing a road, or that's all the excitement is right here. So forget about the shopping center. Okay. Restaurants, come on, the Telcom dinner really beats anything. And then, of course, High Street, our main street. If you want to just have a look at the cathedral, that's maybe the one great thing here. That's it. So pretty much that's the geography. The nice thing of holding this conference here is that, of course, there's no waterfront or anything. So you're pretty much logged in. And the most excitement is really just here at the conference. So you're a prisoner of mine for the next 2 days. Great, thank you. Conference media, we've got a great team of over 22 students that are working with us, doing radio, streaming, and using our website, and obviously doing social media for us. But we've got other partners. RMR is our Rhodes Music Radio. They're partnering with us, and they're just located outside doing live broadcasts of this conference. So we thank them for that. SAFM has been a long-term partner of ours, and they're broadcasting live. They'll be out in the foyer working with us. So we're really grateful to that. SABC Television is also here, and we're grateful to them for partnering with us over the years. SABC has been a partner of this conference for about 20 years. So we wish to thank a lot of people. First, I would need to thank the Rhodes University leadership, our Vice Chancellor, our Deputy Vice Chancellors, and others in senior management who really support this conference and have a sense of ownership of what it is. Then I have to thank Professor Anthea Garman, who is the SACOM convener and who I've worked closely with in the conceptualization of these 2 conferences. It has been a great pleasure working with her and putting this together. So we really hope that what we have put out will be worth your while. Now, this conference would not work anywhere else. We did try to, 1 year we were in Johannesburg, then another year we were in Cape Town. I think those events were a flop, largely because our students were missing. Our students are amazing. There are 60 of them in number that are working at the conference, some of them doing it for the first time. But I'm really always impressed by their energy, their intelligence, the way they come up with creative solutions to the problems that arise in the course of running a conference of this nature. So, I really want to thank them. They are really the stars of this show. Then, of course, our sponsors. I need to, Celestio, you to give me money to come up with a loyalty card that I can give to our corporate sponsors. A few years ago, when I started into this job in 2003, one of the things I came up to, and said was, we really need to get funding from foundations. We do not need corporates as our partners because we need to secure our academic freedom. Then the real irony 21 years later is that the guarantors of this conference are actually corporate. Corporate South Africa has bought into this, and they are the least interfering in this. Whereas I have to deal with foundations with 1-year vision and constantly changing visions and reports upon reports, evaluating for evaluations. I don't need to go through that pain when I'm dealing with Telkom, you know. So, I mean, if you're a representative of a foundation, you really have to think carefully about sustainability of projects. NGOs are folding on the basis that there's no money. The people that are putting money are corporates, you know. So I find it really strange that the people that tell us about sustainability, about, you know, freedom of expression and all that do not put their money into securing that same freedom. So I want to thank our corporate sponsors, you know, Telkom, MTN, and Barclays for the consistent support. Telkom was the founding sponsor. Without Telkom's money, this conference would not have come to life. So for 21 years, they've really sponsored that. I would like to give them you know, a round of applause for that. One of our partners for a long time, for many years, has been OSISA, the Open Society Initiative for Southern Africa. This year, we started a capacity building workshop for journalists. They come from Southern Africa. This was the local government journalism. We thought that it was important for us to begin to build the capacity of journalists who are operating at municipal level, for them to understand budgets, policy making at the municipal level, and then for them to hold those that are in power accountable. I think it has been a successful workshop, and we do hope that going forward, OSISA will see value in us continuing this, or even maybe broadening it to include more countries, or to have in-country you know, training. Then the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has been a consistent you know, a partner of ours. Last year we started something called Solutions Journalism with them. This year we did a science journalism workshop, which involved 22 journalists from 11 countries, as I said earlier. And then tomorrow, again with the Gates Foundation and in association with the African Academy of Sciences based in Nairobi, we are going to launch a program for the training of journalists across Africa. So that will be part of our program tomorrow at 9:30 in this venue. Then, of course, we have got a great partnership with editors, the African Editors Forum. I would like to thank them, with SANEF, and then Oxfam IBIS. They're based in Mozambique. We have a great partnership in the sense that every year, Oxfam IBIS sends a whole delegation of journalists and media practitioners from Mozambique. There are 12 of them that have been supported by Oxfam IBIS this year, and they're also part of the program. They are speakers in the program and trainers. So we want to thank you, Oxfam IBIS, for that. Then, of course, Rhodes University, as I've said, I want to thank the leadership of the School of Journalism, Professor Larry Strelitz, who is here, for his support, consistent support. His open door policy is readily available to me, only a phone call away, and that support really does help us in executing our work. So now, if we can locate our phones and just put them in silent mode, but still tweet, let's make this trend. I thank you so much. Okay. Now I'd like to ask Professor Anthea Gammon, who is the SACOM convener, but also deputy head of the School of Journalism, to come and make her remarks.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to see you here this morning. There was a moment yesterday when somebody said to me, "Is everything under control?" And I thought, well, it's too late. If it's not under control and hasn't been dealt with at this point, we are on a roller coaster ride and we'll just have to see what happens. But I've got to tell you, I'm feeling good because things are amazingly under control. And mostly they are because of Chris and his team, who are so very good at buttoning down all the tiny little things that keep this conference free of the messiness behind the scenes, so that you can really do what you came to do at this conference. And that really is that you must network. There are some wonderful sessions on offer and some lovely training and some really interesting things to fill your minds with. But actually it is an extraordinary gathering of people not only from South Africa, but from all over the continent, and from all over the world. So you must make use of that opportunity because it is a rare one and an important one. I think also the thing that's very delightful about this year for me in particular is that we've been able to bring SACOM together with Highway Africa. Highway Africa has never had a single member who comes or a single delegate. It's never only always been the journalist. Very often we have media researchers from all over the continent. We have media owners. We have people who fund and support media. We have people who intervene in the way media is done. So Highway Africa has always attracted that conversation of people together. But quite often we don't get the people who are the media researchers based in universities and the theorists. And this time those are the people we've got. So if you have a look at your program, and the way to kind of read it is that the little column on the left is orangey, and then we fade into SACOM's beautiful shade of green. So the events run parallel to each other, and we very much want to encourage you to cross the line. Go and have a look at some of the other things that are happening. I just want to sort of pull out, because they're sexy and they're the things we think about at the moment. The post-truth world we live in, lots of the SACOM papers are dealing with those kinds of things. They're dealing with fake news and verification, things that really interest journalists, things that strongly interest academics at the moment and should interest you too, because they've been the foundation of 18 months' worth of protests, is decolonization of knowledge and curricula. And that's on our program at SACOM today as well. So there's lots to do and lots of crossovers to be had. Try extremely hard to make sure that you leave this place with your pockets stuffed with other people's business cards. I think Telkom is also having various competitions, Chris. If you go and put your eat a blue sweet and put your business card in a fishbowl, and there are all sorts of things going on. While I'm on the subject of that, we will be having 2 book launches. We'll announce when. We're going to try and do them over lunches or teas so that people are all together. And we are also giving away some books. I don't know if Toby is in the house. We have been luckily given some books by publishers. Because we have an academic conference present here in this building, we also have publishers, and we have Van Skyke, a branch of which is local to Grahamstown. So you can browse books. So you can also have those kind of encounters, not just people encounters, but virtual encounters with other people via their written work. Please make use of that. I want to say that, well, firstly, actually the thing I wanted to start with, are there any Nigerians in the house? Yeah. Okay, so to the Nigerians, I have to say, you see the shirt I'm wearing? You see this top? Okay. It comes from Lagos. And I promised the people who gave it to me I would wear it at the Highway Africa conference so that all of Africa could see the work from Lagos. So there you go. Thank you very much. I was at a conference called the Women in Journalism Program, and they specified that the dress code would be local Nigerian-made clothes, and you should have seen the audience. I have never been so dazzled in my life. So actually I want to suggest to Chris that we might suggest a dress code from now on. Okay. I do want to thank, before I sit down, I do want to thank the SACOM executive. People have impressions of academics that they're quite a fierce bunch of closeted people, and they do a lot of criticism and critique, but I can't express to you how kind, generous, warm, loving, beyond the call of duty, the SACOM executive is. My research assistant, Mia, who deserves, I think, a holiday in Mauritius as a result of the work she's done. A bunch of flowers just does not say thank you to Mia for the work she's done in the last 6 months. But the SACOM executive has been so on call and ready to answer questions and ready to step in and help us do all sorts of things. They are such a lovely bunch of warm, generous, kind, supportive people, and the emerging scholars are extremely lucky to have SACOM as the wind at their backs. So I want to thank Colin in particular, who's going to speak next, I think. Hey, Chris? Yeah, I want to thank Colin in particular because Colin has been very supportive and very helpful, but everybody else from the SACOM executive, thank you for trusting us. I partly think you shouldn't have, because there were points at which I thought, this is going to be an absolute disaster. But you did trust us, and we're here together now, and this is the most exciting moment. We step into everything we came here to do. So I'll hand over to Colin. Colin, it's your turn to speak on behalf of SACOM as president.
Thanks. It is a tremendous privilege to be here. We at SACOM have been around for over 40 years, and in those 40 years we have done a great deal of work to create in media and communication and related fields through the many different universities that we represent in South Africa. In effect, though, we pretty much the Southern African Association, in the sense that there is no other equivalent body within the area. We are very privileged this year to be here at Highway Africa, to have been carried in a great way by the organization, the capacities, the generosity, the forbearance of the Highway Africa team, Chris, Anthea, the roads team. Of course, I'm extremely grateful personally to the extraordinary way in which my own executive has stepped in to cover, in many instances, breaches that have been inadvertently created on our own side. There'll be a story or two or 10 to tell at a different time and a different space. But I think the most important thing I'd like to say, and I'll take 1 minute to say it, we're at a major turning point in our fields, in our disciplines. As we move into a new technology-driven era, we will see major forking points in the ways in which practice in the industry goes on. We will see different ways in which scholarship must be engaged in. I think one of the things that I'm hoping will happen on the sidelines is that we have a lot of conversations about how academia can be enabled to follow industry. And in some instances, about how academia may be enabled to come up with important innovations, conceptual innovations, in this moment of incredible change. I think this is a great opportunity that this coming together has given us. We're mighty privileged. Once again, let me say that. Many thanks to Highway Africa, Chris, Anthea, Rhodes, all your sponsors. We are mightily privileged to be here, and I'm sure that all of us will have a great time in the remaining conference. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, Colin. I don't know how you do it all the time. You just speak without notes and you go on. I always have butterflies. I die 1,000 times before I can make a speech. Our next speaker is Mr. Guguletu Maklatuka. He's the Executive Group Communication and Business Support at Telkom. Gugu is a good friend of Highway Africa. He has over 25 years experience in communications, but he's one of us. He started off his journalism career at the Natal Witness in Pietermaritzburg, that's in KwaZulu-Natal. He also did co-found at some point Matigari Communications Consultancy before joining Global Public Affairs Agency, Fleischman Hillard, as head of the company's South Africa Public Affairs practice. But who never really does mention what he is actually at heart. He's actually a creative writer. He writes soppies. He also does write children's literature. He won't mention it, he denies it, but I know it. So Gugu, thank you so much.
Chris lies. Fake news. I think, for us as and well, let me say good to everyone here, to the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sizwe Mabizela, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Development, Dr. Peter Clayton, the head and the deputy heads of the School of Journalism and Media Studies, Professor Larry Strelitz and Professor Anthea Gall, Chris, the Director for Africa Conference, members of the Diplomatic Corps, sponsors, donor and partner representatives here present, and delegates of the 21st Highway Africa Conference. I think for us as Telkom, an important hearing. We've been associated for the past 21 years. Okay, as I was saying, we've been associated with Highway Africa for the past 21 years, and for us it's a great privilege because we respect the craft, the profession of journalism, because of what it does, speaks truth to power, and holds all of us, including those in the political space, those in corporates, those in civil society, to account for some of the things we say and some of the actions we take. I think for 21 years, the Highway Africa Conference has been at the center of Africa's debates on journalism, media and information, and communication technology. The conference has over the years become the largest annual gathering of African journalists in the world. This year, the theme is media, accountability and local governance. The theme is appropriate given the trust deficit in South Africa's mainstream institutions, including government, non-governmental organizations and business. While the trust deficit in South Africa's mainstream institutions continues to grow, the biggest decline has been in the confidence in the media. Fact is, trust in the media among South Africans has reached an all-time low. According to the 2017 Edelman Trust Barometer, trust in media dropped from 45% in 2016 to 39% in 2017. Edelman has globally been measuring trust in the four main institutions of government: business, non-governmental organizations, and media since 2000. South Africa has been included in the survey every year since 2013. In a year that saw the rise of fake news spreading across the world, media took the biggest knock and are now seen as politicized and unable to meet their reporting obligations due to economic pressure. The trust deficit in South Africa's mainstream institutions, including government, the media and business, continues to grow as above average levels of fear about corruption, immigration, and the erosion of social values are taking their toll. This lack of faith in the system, combined with deep societal fears, explains the rise of populist movements such as Fees Must Fall, service delivery protests, and populist political candidates. Populist leaders in the US, France, Italy, Mexico, and South Africa have shown that appealing to the common man and issues that affect him outweigh political leadership attributes when it comes to getting elected. Over half of the 28 countries surveyed as part of the Trust Barometer said the system is broken, and 2/3 of them now fall into the category of distrusters, with under 50% trust in the mainstream institutions. In South Africa, the Trust Barometer shows that trust has declined, with 56% of respondents trusting in business, compared to 60% previously. 39% trusting in media, 39% trusting in media from 45% last year, and only 15% trusting in government from 16% last year. NGOs provided this only stable sector, with trust levels remaining at 58%. Declining trust in the main pillars of society has fueled the belief that the system is no longer working. In such a climate, mild societal concerns expand into full-blown fears, which are now spurring the uprisings and dramatic power transfers in countries across the globe. The rise in the popularity of the student protest movements and the political rhetoric of labor unions and politicians are feeding the fears and insecurities of the man in the street, who now is looking to people of his own level, which he believes he can identify with and depend on, and has greater trust in. Peers are now considered to be as credible as experts, indicating that facts matter less. In South Africa, 70% of people now consider a person like me to be on par with technical and academic experts. 2/3 found financial analysts to be credible, 52% found CEOs to be credible, and only 20% found government officials to be credible. These low levels of trust in government likely contributed to the ANC's defeat in the several key municipalities last year. It also explains why people have more trust in Chapter 9 institutions such as the judiciary. While some Southeast Asian countries gained trust in media, the majority of countries experienced a decline. In South Africa, traditional media saw a decline from 60% in 2016 to 56% this year, and it's concerning to note that there is an increase in trust in search engines from 66% in 2016 to 69% in 2017. This means that South Africans would rather search for news on Google rather than accredited news websites. Worryingly, technology has allowed the creation of media echo chambers so that a person can reinforce rather than debate their own opinions. And 59% of global respondents would rather believe a search engine than a human editor. 53% do not regularly listen to people, organizations they disagree with. And respondents are nearly 4 times more likely to ignore information that supports a position they do not believe in. To effect change and build trust in the 4 main institutions, a fundamental shift is needed from the old model of for the people to a new model of with the people. The obvious question is, why do people distrust media in the era of fake news? The answer seems apparent, yet the evidence suggests it is more complicated. One of the reasons seems to be that traditional media today rely more on social media as a source, but don't apply the same rules as they do to other sources, with no fact-checking, questioning, or interrogating. As long as traditional media keep on relying on social media for stories and blindly rehashing incorrect and sensational claims, the trust in media will continue to decline. Another reason for the trust deficit stems from the lack of resources in established newsrooms. One of the casualties in media companies' ongoing efforts to remain economically viable has been the reduction in the number and quality of journalists and sub-editors in the newsrooms. Apart from having to cope with fewer journalists, newsrooms can no longer rely on the experience and skills of well-trained sub-editors who do not only ensure quality and consistency in copy, but also play a crucial role as fact and sanity checkers. These are but a few of the many challenges that media, especially traditional media, are facing. They are involved in a desperate struggle for survival. And now, More than ever, South Africa needs a vibrant and impartial media. The media have always been a beacon of hope in our country's many struggles. I'm confident that the role they have played in ensuring our democracy will again guide them through these many challenges. I believe that media and you as journalists sitting here today can overcome these challenges by doing what you are best at, by focusing on journalism that is relevant to the public, by interacting with communities, getting closer to their experiences, and writing about their concerns. The media, the emerging digital news media have already demonstrated how this can be done. It is more agile, creative, and not bogged down by the high cost of printing and distribution. Their focus is on niche markets, defined by either by geography or issue. The changing media landscape requires all of us to think differently about the role of the media and what is needed for it to remain independent, objective, and vibrant. It is at forums like Highway Africa where we can debate and interrogate these issues and where we can find solutions to the many challenges. I believe it is of great importance for all of you here to play a role in our country's future. I wish you well in your deliberations for the next few days, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you so much, Gugu. Our next presentation and final one in this opening is rather different. When we all do come to Grahamstown, I think we have a false illusion of what Grahamstown is. We do get to the airport, we drive over to Rhodes University, lovely, small, little village, maybe some kind of like, pseudo English, village. Nice facilities and everything. But there's an underbelly to this place. And so I would like to ask Trish Gillis, who is the acting director of Grahamstown Hospice, to come forward. I'd like her to just make a quick presentation about some of the challenges that we do face, and then I will just step in to make a call to all of us here. And then we will move into our keynote address. If we could give a round of applause to Trish and Angela.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a very good morning for Grahamstown Hospice to be invited to your conference. Thank you, Chris, for acknowledging the hard work we do. As Chris introduced you, I'm Trish. I'm a palliative care nurse, and Angela is a psychosocial manager for Grahamstown Hospice. By way of an introduction to the work we do, I'd actually like you to join me in an activity. I hope it's not too difficult with the seats you've got, but if you know someone in your community that is suffering from cancer, TB, HIV, or another life-threatening illness, could you please stand? Thank you. If you know somebody in your family that is threatened by a life-threatening disease, could you also please stand? And then, if you personally have faced a life-threatening illness, could you please stand? Thank you for demonstrating the need we have in our community with a population of 86,000 people, because we don't only do Grahamstown, we do Port Alfred, Kenton, and Alexandria, which is a huge area and a huge burden with disease. Anthony Del Monte said, "Cancer, or any life-threatening illness for that matter, does not have a face until it's yours or somebody you know." I'll hand you over to Angela.
Good morning, everybody. As we've just demonstrated the need for our service, there are so many people who are facing life-threatening illnesses or know someone who is facing a life-threatening illness. This is where hospice comes in. Disease is not discriminatory. The difference is the care. Hospice cares for patients with life-threatening illness. We journey with patients and their families as they adjust to their illness. We are there when they pass on and when their families adjust to life thereafter. Families often tell us how much they value our care. And when a loved one has died, they tell us how they could not have managed without us, nor should they. End-of-life care can be tough. Tough for the patient and tough for the family. We believe, however, that we bring some hope. Maybe not hope of a cure, but we do believe we can make a significant difference. We are the pain management specialists, and we believe that by taking away some measure of pain, patients can live their lives doing the things they value most, spending time with people they value most, finishing tasks they wish to complete, bringing some meaning to their lives, rather than struggling with distressing symptoms that would otherwise dominate their lives. Palliative care is total care, body, mind, and spirit. And we believe that the interventions of our caring and compassionate teams add quality, enhance the quality of life of our patients, and offer families comfort and much needed support. At the heart of our work is the recognition of the intrinsic value of each individual entrusted to our care. I'm going to repeat that. It just came to me one day, and I thought it's just so true about our work. We really care about each individual we care for. So I'm going to repeat that. At the heart of our work is the recognition of the intrinsic value of each individual entrusted to our care. We do need funds to help the overburdened healthcare system and make a difference in the lives of patients and their families. Your pledge will fill the gap.
Thank you for that round of applause. That's very encouraging for me. Now you can reach for your purse, handbag, whatever, or wallet. We have our students here who have got envelopes. These envelopes do have banking details for the Grahamstown Hospice. And so would like to take any pledges, from you. If you do have any cash, that would also be great. We have a box here that would like to place in. So it could be 20 rands, but I'm also taking 20,000. That's fine. I'm willing to get that. So just to inspire me, I just need somebody who could just raise their hand and say, I'm pledging this amount. Can I kick off? I know where I'm heading to. Can I have somebody just pledging something? Where's my brother here, who is always a radical? Is Levi here? Okay. Oh, you're there. You're always the one talking about the black nation and giving them dignity. Will you pledge something? 1,000 rands? I'm taking that. Taking that. Great. Please give him the envelope, and I'll double check that the money is genuine and all that. Okay. So who could we give an envelope? Would you just raise your hand so that we could pass on an envelope to you? Thank you to Tando here. That's great. Up there. That's beautiful. That's great. Okay. Gugu, what are we pledging? Okay. Great. So Telkom has pledged something. That's great, and we're negotiating that. Trish, tomorrow we're following up with an invoice to Telkom, which is beautiful. Thank you, Telkom, for that support. At the back up there, get anything. Just don't give us Zim dollars. Those are dead, okay? But we'll gladly take US dollars, That's great. Okay. That's great. Okay. So thank you. The box will be at the media desk in the foyer. You also see a hospice banner. So during your tea time, lunchtime, please do not forget about the hospice. Just grab an envelope there and do insert, your pledge in there. that will really make a huge difference. The Grahamstown Hospice caters for what's euphemistically called Grahamstown East. It just is the township, okay, of Grahamstown. So thank you so much for that. If I may call Professor Anthea Gammon to come forward to introduce our keynote speaker, and we're getting now into the business of the day. So thank you once again.
Gugu, thank you for outlining the circumstances that media in this country but across the world faces. Perhaps the worst thing is that lack of trust. If the media do not inspire credibility and trust, then we're in terrible, terrible circumstances. When Chris and I were thinking about who we wanted to be the keynote for Highway Africa / SACOM this year, we settled on Amabongane and Sam Sol, partly because of all the knocks and the disappointments and the frustrations that we have seen taking place in our country over the last year or so. We see certain pinpricks of light, and Amabongane is one of them. So we felt that it would be really good to put on a stage and give a platform to an organization that is doing some extraordinary journalism against some extraordinary odds. So I just want to read to you. I thought I'm not going to riff on, oh, I know Sam Sol. I thought, let me tell you who Sam Sol is, because his explanation in the program will persuade you why you need to give him the next hour of your life. Sam has been a journalist since 1986 and worked for the investigative magazine Noseweek, was political editor of the Sunday Tribune, and joined the Mail and Guardian as an investigative journalist in 2002. In 2003, he won the Vodacom Journalist of the Year award for reporting, and this was one of the first times, the criminal investigation into the Deputy President, Jacob Zuma. With Stefans Brummer, who's been a close colleague for many, many years, he's received numerous journalism awards, including for the Oilgate exposés that traced the involvement of an ANC-linked company in diverting money from a state contract to the coffers of the ruling party. Sam was instrumental in revealing the links between former police commissioner Jackie Salibi, slain mining magnate Brett Kebble, and various figures from South Africa's underworld, including Glenn Agliotti. And Amabongane was co-founded by Sam and Stefans in 2010. The way we're going to manage this is that Sam is going to talk primarily about what he understands as the state of journalism. But he is going to take questions if you want to ask him things about the Gupta leaks and further stuff about investigative journalism. So I want to point out to you that we have 4 microphones in that middle section, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that we can all hear the questions. So towards the end, I'll remind you again, towards the end of Sam's talk, that if you want to raise questions, you must please go to those mics, and we would like to identify yourselves. But join me in thanking Sam for being with us this morning. We're really looking forward to this talk.
Right, thank you very much. Can you all hear me? It's a great privilege to be here. I'm not going to talk much about Gupta leaks in my address, but I'm very happy to, when I've dealt with the formal, serious part of the address, to talk about that and answer questions. I think as Gugu outlined, we meet at a time of crisis for journalism, locally and globally. This media crisis is part of a broader crisis of democracy and society, flowing from a malevolent combination of unregulated late capitalism and unregulated technology that has spawned a kind of techno-fascism. Media and journalism are at the center of a civilizational battle about what sort of communication happens and how it shapes our world and our future. That's because now the billion richest and most influential people on the planet are more or less continuously plugged into a digital reality that has an unprecedented ability to manage their connections and influence their perceptions. At the same time, if I can quote sociologist Zygmunt Bauman, we could describe what's going on at the moment as a crisis of democracy, the collapse of trust, the belief that our leaders are not just corrupt or stupid, but inept. Action requires power to be able to do things, and we need politics, which is the ability to decide what needs to be done. But that marriage between power and politics is in the hands of the nation state has ended. Power has been globalized, but politics is as local as before. Politics has had its hands cut off. People no longer believe in the democratic system because it doesn't keep its promises. End quote. There are other reasons for the growing fissure between populations and the agents of representative democracy. The first is the increasing role of money in politics and the related growth of the party machine, an instrument for reproducing power and insulating it from those to whom it is putatively accountable. The cycle of machine politics has meant that the benefits of power have been squeezed upwards to the advantage of the 1%, rather than the majority who supposedly deliver political success. The rise of authoritarian populism globally is a response to a loss of popular agency, but it is also a function of a drive by competing elites to seize control of the party machine. It's a tool as well as a symptom of where we are. The second reason for our problems is the globalization of a free market fundamentalist hegemony that poo-poos the very notion of society. This ideology undermines the idea that states can be the custodians of social goods, of beneficial social infrastructure that is dependent on the cross-subsidizing of some spheres by others. It undermines the idea that not everything can be commercially structured. Indeed, that the incentive systems of late capitalism can be deeply inimical to building society. The third reason for our crisis and what concerns us most here is the weakening of the media as part of the architecture of accountability that is meant to keep the excesses of power in check. My colleague and former editor Nick Dawes, who delivered the keynote at this year's Duke Monell conference, spoke about the loss of trust in the mainstream media that occurred in the United States. He showed a graph showing how around the time of the financial crisis in 2008, for the first time, more people began to mistrust the media in the US than trusted. Not coincidentally, this was around the same time that advertising revenue and employment of journalists plummeted, thanks to the hemorrhage of advertising dollars into internet organizations that are not news organizations. But as his graph showed, the loss of trust preceded the desertion of advertising and seems to me to have occurred in parallel with the growth of a media paradigm that privileged ratings and profit over the core social and professional responsibilities and goals, a media paradigm that presented news as entertainment or as an agency for political or commercial lobbying, or both. In important ways, this drift towards commercial and political partisanship betrayed core journalistic principles and paved the way for the normalization of the kind of hyper-partisan propaganda media that we're seeing today increasingly, and a situation where we're facing a frontal assault on the media as a bastion of fact-based accountability. I don't think we've fully appreciated the impact of this confluence of technology and commerce and ideology, or come to terms with how poisonous it is. Firstly, we've lost our audiences because we've lost control of the platforms. Content used to be a way to deliver audiences to advertisers, but Facebook and Google and the internet more broadly now allows advertisers to tap directly into audiences without the need to pay anyone to create content. According to data analysis agency Zenith, last year Google and Facebook attracted 1/5 of global advertising spending, nearly double the figure of 5 years ago. online advertising spend has overtaken television advertising spend for the first time. The pure internet media owners, Alphabet, that's the Google parent, Facebook, Baidu, Microsoft, Yahoo, Verizon, and Twitter, together accounted for nearly 3/4 of all internet ad spend and nearly 1/4 of total ad spending in the world. In the US, which is ahead of us technologically, Facebook and Google alone account for a staggering 76% of online advertising revenue. So the funding model for professional journalism is broken. I will return later to some suggestions about what to do. But frankly, if I hear any more about digital startups, data journalism, and how media owners must innovate, I think my head is going to explode. On top of this baleful financial scenario is the emergence of what's been termed fake news, which is really part of a terrifying new global information ecosystem where both surveillance and propaganda have been digitally weaponized. Digital reality is now a significant part of our social reality. So the way in which corporations, governments, and money shape digital reality has a profound real-world impact. It can distort that reality on a mass population scale level. That's because there are few controls over the digital feed, and that feed is warped by money and propaganda. Fake news and misinformation is part of that ecosystem. They represent the way in which power can now make use of technology and the media to undermine the very architecture of accountability. In fact, this is a business model for some media now. As Nick put it in his address very succinctly, in a vacuum of trust and of economic health, a new set of media complexes has risen up, hyper-partisan, dedicated to the service of power rather than accountability, and dedicated to the reinforcement of its audience's prejudices. Think Fox News, or closer to home, ANN7, or at the extreme end of the spectrum, Breitbart. Anya Schifrin, in her foreword to a book called In the Service of Power, Media Capture and the Threat to Democracy, notes that the motives of media proprietors are likely to become more political in nature. To quote her, she says, in an age of declining profitability, when owning a media outlet is not as profitable as it once was, then who would want to own a media outlet? Only someone with a strong desire for political influence. In the same book, Mark Nelson writes, as media capture spreads, especially in concert with authoritarianism, it's a menace that becomes progressively embedded within the political system, impervious to reform. Practiced and perfected by regimes like Russia and China, it's now being copied and adopted all over the world. Alternative facts are an attempt to undermine fact-based inquiry and judgment. It's an attack on rationalism itself. It is profoundly totalitarian. Andries du Toit, South African thinker and writer, captured some of what's going on in an article titled The Hyperpolitical Anti-Politics, in which he points out that in some ways we in South Africa, as in many cases, are ahead of the curve. I want to quote, he says, it is in fact arguable that already from 2008 onwards, many of the features of the Zuma presidency foreshadowed some of the distinctive features of present-day politics in the global north. Far from Zuma being a South African Donald Trump, it may be that Trump is the American Jacob Zuma. Or, to put it more seriously, the possibility exists that some of the phenomena connected to the emergence of authoritarian populism and post-truth politics may represent instances of distinctively new forms of late capitalist governmentality. The result is, paradoxically, that the neoliberal anti-politics machine is being displaced by a new kind of hyper-political anti-politics, defined by the primacy of the public sphere and the hollowing out of policy content from political discourse. Thus, Trump, instead of putting forward a coherent far-right political program for implementation by government, seems to be in the process of subverting government itself and replacing it by a kind of perpetual political theater. End quote. In fact, long before Jacob Zuma and Trump, we had Robert Mugabe. without even the benefit of 21st century communications technology. The Mugabe regime has long perfected the art of disconnecting the country's politics from any sort of factual or reality-based reference point at all. I was always struck when in the years when quiet diplomacy was still a thing, when we were still talking about it on media, on the radio, I was always struck how impressive ZANU-PF politicians and diplomats were in interviews about the dire situation in their country. Urbane and well-educated, they'd mastered the knack of letting go of any need at all to genuflect before facts. They had their own facts, alternative facts that fit together very nicely, thank you. And it was frightening how effective that was. Now, globally, to the extent that our reality is so much more mediated by the digital experience, that process is much easier. And surveillance is the other side of that coin. The ubiquitous smartphone and the dominance of our connectedness via social media means that surveillance of whole populations is now within reach. What recent events, such as the election of Donald Trump, have shown us is that this technology can now be manipulated to achieve social and political outcomes. The technology makes the manipulation of populations possible in ways that undermine our basic understanding of the authenticity of popular will, of democracy itself. The scary thing is that propaganda works. Research shows that repeated exposure to false information can propel people to believe that it's true. Fake news often also plays into people's emotional responses. The stories tend to try to solicit fear, anger, or outrage. Technology can now automate this process, as we saw with Trump's army of Twitter bots during the US election. One purpose is to create a bandwagon effect, to create an illusion of massive online political traction, which then gains real traction in the real world amongst voters who want to join the herd. We have our own example right here in South Africa, where so-called Gupta trolls, although the links to the Gupta family are not proven, have succeeded in embedding white monopoly capital discourse as an alternative narrative to the state capture narrative that has been used by the media to frame the Gupta story. Unfortunately, we are only at the beginning of this revolution. Bots are currently quite easy to identify, to spot, but our advances in artificial intelligence will change that. Technology is also going to make it easier to produce fake news that looks real. You can already use a program to make you appear and sound like Donald Trump, or Kim Jong-un for that matter. And the precise targeting of commercial and political speech at individual consumers, based on a sophisticated and automated analysis of their online personalities, that is already a reality. And it's only going to get more sophisticated and intrusive if we continue on the current laissez-faire trajectory. I've labored over this dismal picture because, to the extent possible, I want to sound a loud alarm. This is not a drill. We're fooling ourselves if we don't recognize this is a systemic threat that must force us to rethink the boundaries of free speech and media, which is not commercially free at all. In the United States, there are a number of factors that have retarded the US media's engagement with this reality. And I'm enumerating these because, to some extent, we're in a luckier position. Firstly, the reluctance of the media to engage with its constitutional role and obligations, i.e. its failure to accept that it has a deep political role, which is not, however, party political. Secondly, an attachment to a fake paradigm of objectivity or balance, which makes it difficult to call out bullshit and lies. On the other hand, a hyper-commercial model that rewards partisan comment and audience baiting. Fourthly, an attachment to access reporting, a sense of the media being part of and being comfortable with the establishment. And fifthly, a loss of public trust. So, in the words of Lenin, I think, what is to be done? Let me start close to home. Nick, in his Manel speech, made the somewhat optimistic assertion that South African journalists are an example to the world of how to deal with authoritarian populism, demagogy, and the new pressures of digital disinformation. Nick draws hope from the Gupta leaks and their fallout, and I'll return to that. What is true, in my view, is that in South Africa we've been bequeathed a media culture that has worked to counter some of these harmful tendencies. The heritage of the anti-apartheid media is one that is ethically aspirational, independent, political in the sense of having a commitment to its constitutional mandate and constitutional values, has a heritage of being anti-establishment, skeptical, suspicious of authority and power. There's a relatively strong professional culture of what doing journalism means. There's a common understanding. And that extends from the public broadcast at the SABC to print to online. And here I must also pay tribute to the SABC 8, who stood up for that professional culture and helped win back control of the public broadcaster. But I don't think they would have had the support both inside, and it wasn't only them, inside the SABC and outside, without the framework of a public culture of independent journalism rooted in the constitutional imperative of accountability. Our media has built that public culture despite our faults and failures. At Amamongani, we've worked very hard to build public trust, to build confidence in the brand. And we engage online and quite often with the fake news brigade to protect to build and protect our reputation. I think we instinctively understood, and it's only when I had to sit down to write this speech that I started to try and think about the elements of what we've done. But I think we instinctively understood the need to build a trust economy to counteract what's been called the attention economy. So in South Africa, journalists have held the line. But I don't think probably people in this room understand, but I don't think people out there realize what a thin black line of ink it is, what a thin bright line of pixels it is. The industry and the profession is stretched. Aside from the same commercial meltdown facing the media worldwide, let's enumerate the more conventional domestic threats that remain. Firstly, the recapture of the SABC by forces more in tune with professional journalism remains fragile. It's hard to overstate how important the dislodging of the Hlaudi Motsoeneng gang at the SABC has been. It's probably more important than anything we've done at Amamongani, given where most South Africans get their news. I'll return to the SABC as a template for action in other areas. But we should not think that the political forces that were dislodged will not mount a counteroffensive. In addition, there are some powerful commercial interests that have a lot to lose from a proper exploration of the SABC's skeletons. It's an underreported story, rich with ironies, that Hlaudi and the Zuma faction forged an unholy alliance not only with the Guptas, but with that archetype of white monopoly capital, Naspers, to protect MultiChoice, the paid television monopoly controlled by Naspers. ANN7, we should remind ourselves, has a platform courtesy of MultiChoice. Secondly, the purchase of independent media by a consortium led by Iqbal Survey has been a blow to journalism at the country's largest newspaper group. There have been heavy staff cuts, some significant departures of editors, and an editorial line adversely impacted by the new owners' narcissism, pettiness, and political debts. The group's largest and most influential publication, Business Report, is now led by a public relations lightweight. Sorry in advance to any public relations practitioners in the audience, who has worryingly demonstrated a willingness to use the paper to publish a poorly substantiated smear story against a commercial target. In this case, in this one particular instance that I'm referring to, the listed technology group EOH, and set a worrying precedent. The third threat, the ruling ANC has again raised the bogey of a statutory media tribunal without being able to present any credible case that the self-regulation structure that is in place has failed. The threat of a media tribunal remains a tool to promote self-censorship among the media. Fourthly, the collapse or capture of state institutions of accountability in South Africa have placed extra focus and pressure on the media as an accountability mechanism that still works. Especially in the debate around the Gupta family and state capture, this has moved the media to the center of the contestation in the country, making the media a player, part of the story, and also a target. Those who have been at the forefront of writing about the Guptas and state capture, including myself, have been smeared as the racist agents of white monopoly capital. The Times media group's Peter Bruce has been followed and had pictures of his private meetings published online. Ferial Haffajee has had a whole sexist and demeaning meme library produced around her fictitious relationship with the chosen poster boy of white monopoly capital, Johan Rupert. And I have repeatedly and falsely been accused of having been an apartheid spy. Fifthly, as in the US, there's been a very cynical process of using vulgar identity politics as a means of cashing in on or channeling the discontent being stirred up by the failure to deal with poverty, inequality, racism, state failure, vested interests, and structural barriers to finding solutions. The cheap stormtroopers of this process in South Africa have been Black First, Land First, who have physically targeted journalists despite a court injunction. Their slogan, "Land or Death," echoes the fascists at the other end of the spectrum who chanted the Nazi slogan, "Blood and Soil," in Charlottesville a couple of weeks ago. Sixthly, as the political conflict mounts, there's more and more pressure for the media to take sides. In this process, the good guys, the so-called constitutionalists wanting to save the ruling ANC from itself, are as guilty of trying to manipulate the media as the other factions. They issue a siren call to choose political allegiances in a way that shapes coverage and is fed by targeted leaks. And it would be a profound mistake for our media to plant a factional or party political flag, whether overtly or covertly. Yet our task, and it's a key message I want to give to you, our task is profoundly political, and we need to recognize and build on that. We need to articulate a platform that's about defending the information infrastructure of democracy. To quote Nick again, press freedom is actually about accountability systems. It's about everyone's rights. We have to show people we're on their side, not of their political party, but of their interest. So I want to suggest the outline of a politics or program that supports what we should be. We should be a fierce guild, skeptical about all who wield power, loyal to nothing but the painful art of truth-telling, and to those of our tribe who uphold its best traditions. The ideas I'm sketching below are by no means exhaustive or uncontroversial. First, we need to build trust in everything we do in the news business. That means accepting and acting on the recognition that being right is more important than being first. That means shunning clickbait ads linking to fake stories and confronting other business and editorial practices that undermine trust. That means having ongoing and sometimes uncomfortable discussions about ethics. That means questioning the motives of sources and leaks and foregoing the scoop if the exchange is ethically questionable. In South Africa, we have a nasty history of the media being manipulated by political factions via such scoops to damage their opponents. It means questioning our own ideological assumptions about the way the world works, about what moves the human project forward and what doesn't. Secondly, we need to protect the ground that we haven't lost yet and prioritize the recapture of institutions that may be rescuable. In this regard, the successful efforts to persuade the Johannesburg Securities Exchange to retain its requirement that companies publish and therefore pay for adverts in a newspaper are an example for other initiatives. We need to defend editorial independence from further encroachment by commercial or political interests. We need to engage with local free sheets and those that run them. They are at the coalface of local accountability, which is where most of what matters to people happens. I can't stress enough what a great victory the recapture of the public broadcaster was. The institution and its journalists need ongoing support. At the same time, we should not give up on the institutional memory and momentum that still exists within independent media. Its journalists need support, its editorial management needs to be engaged and called out where necessary, its corporate architecture needs scrutiny and challenge. This institution was purchased on the back of public service pension funds. It belongs to all of us and can be reclaimed. Thirdly, we need to build solidarity. That means support for each other as journalists. It means realizing that collaboration is as important as competition, whatever the management may say. In this regard, the way we've pursued the Gupta leaks has been significant. The leaks were made initially to the Daily Maverick, which called Amo Bungani for help, and jointly we took a decision to include News 24 as part of the collaboration. Solidarity means calling out the bullying of journalists, even if they are from ANN7. It means supporting institutions of solidarity like SANEF, the South African National Editors Forum, which has done such important work promoting a free media and supporting journalists under fire. It means thinking about whether it's possible to resurrect an effective media workers' union. It means building relationships with existing donor funders and promoting the creation of new bodies and sources of funding that are willing to help expand the non-profit sector, to give us money without wanting to control what we do with it. It means building public understanding and support of our mission and the space we need to carry it out. It means engaging with some humility with our priorities, our weaknesses, and our failures. More controversially, it means building broader alliances for the defense of media freedom. The recapture of the SABC was built on a network of informal and formal solidarity from journalists and bodies like SANEF. But it was only made possible by involving NGOs like the SOS Coalition and parties like the South African Communist Party, which played a key role, and elements of both the ruling ANC and opposition parties. Solidarity means building alliances between media owners and managers, encouraging them to subordinate corporate ego and short-term gain for the longer-term health of the industry, and encouraging them jointly to resist commercial and political bullying. It means exploring more collaborative forms of working. It also means building solidarity networks globally, because the problem is global. As I began researching for this address, it became clear that journalists and regulators around the world are grappling with how to protect journalism as a public good. So finally, on that point, we need to realize that technology is not our friend, at least not while it is controlled by the overlords of Google, Facebook, and Amazon. Let me tease that out as well as I can. There are two aspects: the free speech and accountability dimension, and the commercial monopolies and their effects. In both cases, the responses need to be regulatory. In regard to free speech, there is the question of who can speak online and what you may say. In both cases, I find myself at odds with the free speech fundamentalists by virtue of the anonymizing and amplifying characteristics of the internet. Free speech essentially is a personal right, a right vesting in a human. It does not include the right to a megaphone or a printing press or a website. It does not vest in a machine. The philosopher Karl Popper argues correctly, in my view, that we cannot be tolerant of intolerance because it tends to crowd out tolerance. Progressive constitutions like our own admit to the limitations of speech rights, to the extent that such speech amounts to hate speech or the incitement of violence. It also protects the right to dignity, which in the case of speech in every jurisdiction I can think of, is accounted for by way of defamation law. In the old world, you could not say hateful things about people if you couldn't back them up. Freedom of speech was balanced by an architecture of accountability for what you say. As we ourselves have experienced with the Gupta bots and the whole conflict around reporting on state capture, those protections are not working anymore. Firstly, they are undermined by the ability of technology now to create fake speakers. If I can easily and cheaply create the simulacrum of a community of views, then I undermine the very basis of political speech. Bots do not have rights, and I should not be able to exercise my personal free speech right by pretending to be 100 or 1,000 different people. A starting point for regulating this kind of abuse would be for the platforms to require a proof of life requirement. In other words, banning computer-driven communication, or at least specifically identifying or labeling it that. I have the right to know whether I'm dealing with a person or a machine. Secondly, the protections against abuses of free speech are undermined by the anonymizing facility of the internet. Note that this anonymity is reserved for the audience, but not for the platform, which has invested enormously in identifying and tracking its users. There is not, as far as I'm aware, a right to anonymous speech. It is a protection provided by journalists and publishers who do so for good public policy reasons, but at the cost of assuming liability themselves. That quid pro quo balance is absent from the internet. The WMC Leaks site, for instance, which published the defamatory material about Peter Bruce and others, is hidden behind an anonymous domain registration. And the domain host generally escapes any liability because of provisions, especially in US law, that immunize web hosts, treating them as mere pipes or conveyances with no duty to remove damaging material, even when it is pointed out. Provisions like these do not promote discourse. They promote stalking, revenge porn, and other sorts of impunity. They need to be rethought. Platforms like Facebook are publishers. They must be made to take responsibility for public content that they make money off, like any other publisher. The big platforms have insulated themselves to an extraordinary degree. They know everything about you and me, but you can't even contact them. I'll give you an example. At some point, we had reason to believe the state might seek a Section 204 subpoena to access my emails from Gmail. We tried to contact Google just to say, if there is a request, please alert us so we can go to court and challenge the matter before you act on the request. We couldn't even find anybody to speak to, and that includes our lawyer, Dario Milo from Weber Wenzel, who had met one of Google's lawyers at a conference in New York and actually had a name and an email address. And there was nothing, a black hole. We couldn't get a response. So now when I come to Google and the terrible impact of their growing monopoly of online advertising, we come to the nub of what I want to say. We set up Amabungane as a donor-funded non-profit company because we saw support for investigative journalism was under threat. We want Amabungane to flourish. We want big donors and the public to continue to provide financial support. And we hope we can popularize the idea and practice of crowdfunding journalism. But Amabungane is not a substitute for a comprehensive news ecosystem. The Gupta leaks, groundbreaking as they are no substitute for the sustained everyday accountability journalism that needs to extend from City Hall to the local chemical factory all the way up to multinationals and the UN. And we need to face the fact that the exodus of revenue from news organizations is not going to be reversed by paywalls, by data journalism, by targeting the youth segment or whatever. Yes, some big players like the New York Times will flourish, but there will be more and more consolidation and less journalism. Without regulation to force money back into journalism, the situation will not be reversed. Lawmakers in the European Union, Australia, Canada, and elsewhere have been grappling with how to do it, whether by a so-called Google tax on aggregators, a levy on online or foreign advertising, or whatever. There's no reason why an online advertising tax could not be used to help fund news production via state subsidies of one kind or another. The pitfalls of dealing with attempts to exert political influence when the state is involved in funding journalism can be managed. France does it. There must be innovative ways that subsidies could be distributed to users, perhaps, such as providing citizens with an annual media voucher that they can direct to a choice of their own news outlets. Of course, Google and Facebook are pushing back, resisting the idea of such levies, and indeed pushing for the extension of flawed safe harbor copyright provisions that have already decimated the music industry, for instance. And they're pushing even here in South Africa, where there's a shockingly bad and terribly underreported copyright amendment bill, which is making its way through Parliament as we speak. Google and Facebook are monopolies in the same way that Standard Oil and AT&T were, except this time they're global. And there's no reason, similarly, in principle, why they should not be broken up into competing entities and forced to provide news content as part of a license condition, the way broadcasters are. I don't know the best regulatory route to fund public interest journalism. And hopefully this conference will generate some ideas. But I do know that the task must be confronted. If I can distill just one takeaway from this address for you, it's this. Technology is not going to save us. Politics might just. Get active, get organized, get out there, maybe get Google. Thanks.
So who has that slogan, don't be evil? Okay, questions. We have, I think, 9 minutes. Who would like to please go to a microphone? Yes. Do you want to start us off? And anybody else who wants to ask a question, give us your name and keep it tight, please.
Thanks very much, Sam. That was an absolutely amazing discussion where you theoretically mapped a lot of good issues. My name is Jatin Hansji, and I'm working at AFTA Film School. One of the things which I found quite interesting about what you said is the fact that Zuma and Trump was a result of neoliberal technologies, and these are the results of late capitalism. What I'm interested in is, to what extent do you think the media buys into neoliberal technologies and technocracies and moves away from politics and is merely a mirror of the establishment rather than being critical? What I'm asking is, us in the media, how are we merely reproducing power while believing ourselves to be critical of it? Thank you very much.
It's quite hard to answer questions about the media because it's one of the things I hate about people who criticize the media, because there is no such thing as the media. You know, it's a multifaceted beast, and some of us do a better job than others of you know, stepping away from you know, living in the bubble of power. Look, I think the American example is a very good one in the sense of they bought into the Iraq War. They bought into a lot which people on the ground can see was a lie, and it's come back to bite them. And I think that in South Africa, partly because of where we come from, where the kind of best elements of the media tradition were opposed to the state because it was a nasty, evil state, and things were very black and white. But some of that that independence and that distance from power, you know, was retained when we achieved a democracy, and I think that it served us well. But it's very seductive to be part of the winning team. It's very seductive to say, you know, these received wisdoms are the truth. There's you know, you have to just get with the program. And I'm trying to argue that we really need to be careful not to do that.
I don't know if I can actually reach this. My name's Mandy Smallhorn. I'm president of the South African Science Journalists Association. At the MMA Menal event, the idea of a guild for journalists came up. We lost the union, and I don't necessarily want to fight labor battles on behalf of journalists, but I think that the idea of a supportive, overarching guild where we can do what you're suggesting, defend, support, collaborate with each other. I'd really like to call on anybody who's interested in getting something like that going to maybe, let's start something, talk to me.
Yeah, 100% support that. Again, it became very difficult to sustain the idea of a journalists' union, when journalism bought into in a sense, the neoliberal paradigm that, collective action, was pretty infra-dig and all of that kind of thing. We were independent agents, professionals, etc. And that was a trap. We need to reclaim those kind of guild instincts.
Hi, thanks. So my name is Catherine D'Ignazio. I'm from Emerson College in Boston, Massachusetts. And thank you for an incredible, very systems-level talk. It was excellent. I'm very interested in this idea of a tax on ad revenue, and I was wondering if you could just say a little bit more about that. Is that an idea that is circulating right now? Are people bringing that to Google and Facebook as a potential thing? And who is bringing that? Is that governments? Are those national governments? Or maybe tell me a little bit more about who's talking about that, and what do you gauge as the possibility for implementing that either locally, regionally, or globally?
Look, Google is now big and bad and one of the biggest lobbyists in Washington. And the things that I read about were kind of some commissions in Australia that have been happening this year, and also one in Canada, where lawmakers and journalists and so on put forward ideas like that, which have been, I think, certainly in the case of Canada and probably also Australia, slapped down by, neoliberal administrations. Justin Trudeau has said, he's not going to impose another middle-class tax. And what I think, there was a lovely tweet about perhaps Trump is like a distress flare from the world, like. The wonderful thing about Trump and perhaps about where we are here is that corporates like Telcom and people who are content to continue business as usual are suddenly starting to see that there's a threat to the entire system which sustains all of this, and starting to maybe rethink about their engagement, rethink about what does sustain a society, but it's going to be a battle. And if I'm what I'm trying to say is this is a call to arms. Now, this is not going to happen because of technology itself. It's only going to happen if we fight for it. Simple as that.
Thanks. Hi, Ursula Furcht from DUT. I'm up here.
Oh, okay.
When you said we must continue to support independent media, I just want to know how to do that, because I already feel like I don't want to pay money for some of the content I'm reading. And then, I realize if they don't get my money, they're going to go to like various sponsors to get the money from them. So practical suggestions of how we can kind of provide support to the kind of journalism we want to see.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think it's about trying to reproduce what was done in relation to the SABC, where there's a campaign, and there's some leverage there because the company is completely overborrowed, courtesy of the Public Investment Corporation. So in a sense, we and the public servants have a stake in that. So to kind of get us, safe, independent thing together to try and have institutional engagement, which puts some pressure on the institution, which frees some space for the journalists to do what they want to do, etc. I don't know exactly. I just know that from looking at politics and so on, we've had the same kind of thing with other institutions of accountability here, like in the criminal justice system. We can't give up on the state. We can't give up on the institutions that do exist, even if they're under threat, if they're not perfect, because it's almost impossible to rebuild those. So you have to try, like was done with the SABC, is try to regain control, create space, get the wrong people out, get the right people in. I don't know what a project like that would look like with regard to independent, and maybe there are other priorities that are more important. But I do know that we've got, not only in the media but in the country, to start campaigning around reclaiming institutions of accountability.
Thank you, Sam, for the presentation. It was really an eye-opener, and I respect what you guys do at Amabi. My name is Paul Wafula from The Standard in Nairobi. The Standard is among 2 organizations in East Africa, I mean Nairobi, in Kenya, that have had at least some investigative journalists. And the 2 best investigative journalists left. One went into politics, is now elected as an MP, and the other just gave up and left. I raise this because as journalists, you sit down and you think that the society or the people you're writing for really wants this expose, that they really want you to go after power. And you work so hard, you come up with this big story that you spend six months on it, and you come out and people don't care. In fact, you end up just becoming the victim after the story comes out. So you find a society where as a newspaper that really doing some good stuff, writing what you think is content for the people that they really need, is doing 15,000 copies at best, and then you find somebody selling sex or funny stories, gossip, nothing really that you really need to leave your desktop, is doing 100,000 copies in the first 2 months of launch. And this is the society that you're writing for. So you come out and as an investor, someone is thinking, where should I put my money? Should I really invest in this heavy investigative? Or should I just throw my money after what is sensational? So this is a society you are dealing with. And it's something that's very difficult for us who are trying to do really some good journalists. What is your thoughts on that?
Look, that's part of the problem with the very commercial nature of the attempt to try and fund journalism only via commercial means. Because the society we're in, the kind of consumer, the pressures for consumption and for whatever, the appeals to everybody's basest instincts are powerful, and that's where you can make money. It's part of the reason we went the non-profit route, and there's obviously a case for non-profit public interest journalism, and investigative journalism being a niche and being quite sexy for funders and so on. I think it's a productive area to do non-profit journalism, but those kind of sexy scoops, Gupta leaks, etc., are not what the overall media. They can't provide the overall media function. The much more consistent, boring reporting on what happens at City Hall, reporting on that basic information that is crucial to democracy, and we need to find another way of funding that.
Good day. I'm Isaac River from the University of Limpopo. I would like to get some clarity from you. You said that there is no right to anonymous speech, and you were advising what we should do. So what came to my mind is, where do we leave the principle of protecting sources within the media and communications fraternity in relation to that statement?
Sure, that's an easy one to answer, because the point I was making is there is that anonymity, but that anonymity is granted by publishers and by journalists, who in exchange for that anonymity assume liability for what is published. So somebody tells me something I think is in the public interest, and it's important that their identity is protected. I publish what they say. If somebody is sued, it's me, not them. So there's that exchange. What happens now is there's no intermediary who takes the responsibility. You can publish whatever you like online. You can hide behind anonymous links, and the people who maintain that anonymity, those anonymous links, are not, you can't hold them in any way liable the way you can hold me liable for what I convey from a confidential source.
All right, thank you. My name is Levi. I'm a Trump supporter. I'll explain at the Red and Parrot at 10 p.m. tonight. But I just want to thank you, Sam, for insisting on us to take the lessons from the SABC as a public media, because one of the things that has happened is that we've been taught by the NGOs that you recommend and other people to forget or to ignore the role public media play within this space. And I think nowadays it's becoming quite apparent that we do need public media. As media, you can truly hold accountable to be, to lead that fight. So thank you for raising that. Just then the other question on the so-called rise on fake news. We've also been taught that, you know, it's good to have access to information. We need as much information as possible. But how much literacy? There hasn't been any insistence on information literacy. So it's people who are consuming fake news and don't understand that it's actually fake. Is it a question of, you know, the platform is wrong or you shouldn't believe this? But could it then be that people are actually not literate enough to understand that this is false, this is correct, I need to believe this, or I need to process information in a certain way? Then lastly, I think you're making a call for activism. You want people to become activists, but you're not actually saying that. So what have we lost in the past throughout this whole period of neoliberalism, of NGOs and academics telling us that, you know, this is the way to go, embrace technology, and we forgot that part about the activism. So can you really maybe buttress that point, and what are you really saying about an active citizen, a citizen who understands their duty in a democracy and the need to defend the space that we are fast losing? Thank you.
Yeah, I think you've encapsulated the activist call very well. That is what I'm saying. I'm saying that some kind of technical solution, some kind of outside thing is not going to save us. You know, the issues that are confronting us in the media around the loss of agency, popular agency, and the impact that's going to have on kind of, or is having on global politics, is and particularly the role of technology, is going to get more and more acute over the next 10 years. You know, we're 3-5 years away from self-driving trucks and cars and so on. They're going to put millions of people out of work. The process of automation of the jobs that give a lot of people income and purpose, that is a huge threat. I think that the way in which technology has changed, it's not the same as the Industrial Revolution. It's not a given that new jobs will emerge from this process. So we are going to have to confront these things politically, because the people who run Google and so on are not interested in that. They essentially, I mean, I think it's not a coincidence that a South African produced a movie like Elysium, where you have, you know, essentially the 99% living in squalor and corruption and pollution, and you have, you know, the 0.1%, you know, living off you know, somewhere, because in a sense South Africa is like that, but you know, the world is becoming more like that, and we're going to have to confront that politically. There are not technical solutions to that. What was the middle question? I can't remember. Yeah. No. Well, that's it. You can always talk to me outside.
I really feel the need. Thank you, Sam. Okay. I really feel the need to read that presentation, and I'm wondering if you feel the same. It just came like a wave. Are you willing to share it with us, Sam? It would be really lovely to be able to go through it thoroughly. Okay, back to Chris.
There will also be the video. I need to just check, because we did record that, and we should then cut it and put it up and send out the link to all those that are registered. So that would be great. Sam, thank you so much for agreeing to do this keynote. It's his first keynote ever in his life, and I'm glad that Highway Africa. It's always the first time. Now, Sam, you come from a background of print. I know how you love paper. And, but when you're doing all this great work that you do, I need you to be seated somewhere with some news surrounding you, not distracting you. So come over, and I need to give you something that we do in the Eastern Cape. We have no gold or diamonds in the Eastern Cape, but we have creativity. We are creative people. You to be seated somewhere with some news surrounding you, not distracting you. So come over, and I need to give you something that we do in the Eastern Cape. We have no gold or diamonds in the Eastern Cape, but we have creativity. We are creative people. That's for you, Sam. Okay. Could you just, let me just unplug it? Okay. Sam? So folks, if we just take out our programs on page 8 of our programs, we're going to break for tea just now, but we just need to know where we should be going. So let's just see, I need the program, schedule, okay. Okay, so we're going to have tea in the foyer, and then at 11 o'clock, we've got parallel sessions. There will be a media and local government session in here. This is the Eden Grove Red. Post-truth will take place in Seminar Room 1. That is one floor up in this same building. So that's where Seminar Room 1 is. Health Communication, Seminar Room 2, just next to Seminar Room 1, just again upstairs. Then Media, Identity and Text is at St. Peter's in room 34. St. Peter's, as I said, straight out here to my right through the door. Then you turn left. Our students are already waiting for you. They'll be able to direct you. St. Peter's is just really about 20 meters down from this building. You won't miss it. Please be there on time. Meaning and Agency will be in room 36, again in St. Peter's. Okay. Then Social Media and Marginalized People. That session is in here, Eden Grove Blue. Now the blue room is just like this auditorium. It is next door. So this is red. You just see it by seeing the red seats. The blue, you walk in, you see the blue seats. You know you're in the right place. Okay, so that should be it. Now you have been great, good people. So I'm going to ask Gugu to come here. We're going to just give out some 3 lovely things out there. So let's just bring it. Is Lina here? Lina Ankuna? Lina? Oh, Lina, you here? Okay. But in Zim, you'd be called Lina, And Lina, Lina. Okay. So Lina, if you're just over here, Google give out the presents. Lina, because you are young, you are not yet corrupted. You are the one, therefore I'm trusting to dip into that. So do not look, okay? And then just obviously go around there, okay? And I'm trusting you to get to my edge without any brown envelope that you have accepted. Okay, so let's do it, Lila. We're going to give out some 2 fantastic prizes, okay? No rigging, transparency, okay? Jovial Rantao, nah, not jovial. He's got a lot of other things. Come on, we want somebody else to win. I can decide, chair of the electoral board. Okay. Angelo Amaro. Is Angelo here? Come down, Angelo. Great. Angelo is from Mozambique. Bon dia, como está? Tudo bem. Great. Okay. Place of fantastic prawns. Yeah. Okay. Going. If you've never won something in your life, maybe this is the day that changes. Thank you again. Okay, great. You're present. Photo opportunity there. Yeah, beautiful. Ah, great. Okay, then Caro Dineo. Is Dineo here? Caro? Going. Ah, Amajlozako, you know, the ancestors are not looking after you. You do. Okay. Great. Let's see. Moses Moyo. Is Moses here? Oh, Moses. Now we have been talking about, I salute you, Moses. Okay. So thank you, so good people. So go to the telecom stand, dip in. We've got more prizes. We'll give out more again this evening. And have some lovely tea and great engagements. You've been fantastic. Thank you.